So I want to thank everybody for joining in on today's class. Today's class is about wealth building. This class is for those individuals that reside in Rovers Park, which is a public housing unit in Tampa, as well as any other individuals that receive any type of assistance from Tampa Housing Authority. The whole approach for this class is to begin to teach individuals with limited income how to invest. What we know for sure is that poor people are poor because they spend poorly. So what we're going to do with this workshop is to begin. I'm hearing some sound in the background, so I'm going to move. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll address those questions. Where's the move button at? I don't see the move button. Okay, so let's continue on. So this class right here is focused towards especially low-income individuals and talking about how do they begin to change their spending patterns in such a way that they become investors instead of consumers. That being said, let me go to share here. Okay, let's get started. This right here, particular video it's going to be short, but I think we're going to get a lot of information out of it. It's going to talk about the different terms that you should know related to investment. Let's get started.
401k. Now what? Even if you leave the heavy lifting to the brainiacs and guided choice, it's a good idea to know how investing works. And if you're the do-it-yourself side, you need to understand how to invest appropriately. Don't worry, we're not going to show you tons of math. All you need to know to get started is that there are three big types of investments called asset classes: stock, bonds, and cash. Stock is just ownership in a company. There are many ways to classify stock. Two major ones are size, called market capitalization.
Let me ask you a question. They mentioned three types of investment. One was cash, one was bonds, and one was stock. What do you think is the best one? Money, stocks, or bonds?
Stocks.
Stocks, good. Okay, let's go forward and see what they're saying.
Or cap and company location. Each classification has its own typical level of risk. Large cap stocks include the 500 biggest companies in the U.S. Apple, Walmart, Disney, Ford, McDonald's. Ever heard of the S&P 500 or blue chips? Same thing. Keep in mind, all stock is risky, but these are generally considered the least risky. Mid-cap stocks include roughly the next 400 companies by size. Smaller, but still fairly well established. They're considered riskier than large cap. Following large cap and mid cap, take the next 2,000 companies, and you've got small cap stock. While they have potential for greater growth, they also have the greatest risk. Then there's international stock, ownership in companies located in developed nations outside the U.S., like BMW in Germany and Sony in Japan. They carry about the same level of risk as U.S.-based large cap stocks. The highest level of risk is found with emerging market stock. This is stock in companies located in developing nations like India, Mexico, and Russia. There are two ways to make or lose money in the stock market. You see, when you own a stock, you actually own a piece of a company, and as the value of that company increases, the stock price goes up. But if the value of the company goes down, the stock price goes down too. These fluctuations determine the amount of profit or loss. Another way to make money is when the company shares its yearly profit with you in the form of a dividend. Stock prices can go up or down dramatically for all kinds of reasons. As a result, stocks are the riskiest types of investment in your plan. But over a long time, they can also be the most rewarding. Next up, bonds. Bonds are just a loan to a company or government. They borrow by selling a bond. repay the buyer in a fixed number of years at a fixed interest rate. When you hear about the U.S. government borrowing money, have you ever wondered who they borrow from? Chances are it's you through the investments you make in bonds. If interest rates go down after you buy a bond, its value goes up. If interest rates go up, then your bond value will go down. How much the value goes up or down with the change in the interest rate depends on how long the bond is. The longer the bond, the more risk. As the more the value will go up or down with interest rate changes. However, in general, bonds are less risky than stocks. Cash is, well, cash. In a 401k, it's usually available as a money market or stable value fund. Unlike other assets, there's little risk that your money will lose value. But that doesn't mean there's no risk at all. If you hold too much cash, you are at risk that inflation will leave your money worth less compared to everything else. For example, in 1950, a nickel would buy you a Coke. But if you saved that nickel until today, you wouldn't have enough to buy that same Coke. Cash loses value over time. Most people with 401k plans invest in mutual funds. These hold many different individual stocks or bonds chosen by professionals for a given level of risk and potential reward. So, how do you choose the right mix for your specific needs? You may be surprised to hear that according to the majority of corporate pension plans in the world, there really is a single best way. It's called modern portfolio theory. The details are a lot of math, but understanding what's behind all the numbers is remarkably simple. In fact, you've probably already heard of it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You balance risk and reward by holding lots of different types of investments. The technical term is diversification, and it's the name of the game.
So, diversification is so important because you don't want to put all your money in one particular basket. For example, you don't want to put it all in stocks. You want to put it in stocks and bonds and other types of financial instruments.
Investing. So how do you do it right? Most of us understand that if we take more risk, we expect more return. Let's look at the math. The line shows us that for any given level of risk, we can expect a certain rate of return. More risk, more return. The challenge, as you may be aware, is that markets don't move in a straight line. They go up and down. The goal is to buy low and sell high. When one investment is down, you want to buy. At the same time, you want to sell an investment that's high. In the long run, they all tend to move up, just at different rates based on risk. Remember, this is your retirement savings, so to invest well, you need to diversify. The goal of diversification is what modern portfolio theory is all about, getting an optimal rate of return for the risk in the long run. To do that, you want to invest on what is known as the efficient frontier. The details of drawing the curve are just a lot of math. You could spend the spare hours of your days creating the efficient frontier on a very large spreadsheet, or you could let experts do it for you. In fact, the answers are already right where you want them, online, and probably already in your 401k plan. Guided Choice can give you personalized advice recommending a specific mix of stocks, bonds, and cash to reach your retirement income goal. You can even use it to try different strategies and project the results. Whether you take the investment recommendation from our brainiacs or choose to do it yourself, hopefully now you're a little more confident about how retirement investing works. Just remember, if you do it yourself, you need to rebalance your account at least annually to stay on the efficient frontier.
Okay, let's pause this. Let me pause this. I'm not.
Robo Global presents Bacon. Tech.
Okay, so give me, where did you learn this now from what we went over this now? What did you come away from? That information that was given out to us just now.
I mean that you just really got to choose what fits you. Because
Right, but
you can lose money in each one of them areas.
true. But what's most important when we talk about the different types, bonds, stocks, and cash, what's most important to know is that the more risk you take, the greater return you get on your money. So let's say, for example, you are with a bank and you got your money in a money market, or you might have your money into some other type of instrument that the bank is offering. Well, unfortunately, the bank might give you a 8% return on your money. If you invest in stocks and bonds, you can get a 20 to 25% on your investment. But it's the risk that you take. The more risk you take, the more money you get back from your bonds. That's why part of this workshops is going to deal with how do you know which stocks to invest in? How do you know which bonds to invest in? How do you know which financial instruments to invest in? So let's now go back and deal with all of the types of investments. Let's go.
What you're looking at here is the quickest and most responsible way.
Okay, let's take this.
You're free to potentially double, triple, or before I get into the lesson today, I want to start off by saying that this entire playlist.
Okay, so are you saying what I'm saying? It's saying 8 types of investment.
It's just hard to really understand what they're saying because I can hear everything in your background.
Oh, let me see. Let me cut this fan off then. Hold on 1 second. Let's do here. But you do see on your screen 8 types of investment. Is that right?
Yeah.
Good. Now, keep in mind, everything that I'm going over, everything is being recorded. So I'm going to actually send you the presentation. So what you might not hear, because of what happened earlier related to the fan, you'll be able to look at the whole presentation.
All right.
Okay, let's now talk about the different types of investments.
It's just about the basics of finance. The concepts I'm going to talk about in this playlist are what I believe should be the bare minimum a person should know about finance. With that said, I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video, but I definitely will get more specific in later videos. Now, there are many different types of investments an individual can take. However, not all investments are created equally. As I mentioned before, some investments are much riskier but have higher returns, while other investments are safer but have lower returns. Today, I'm going to talk to you about 8 common investments that I feel everyone should at least know about. Now, there are many other different types of investments that I'll talk about down the road, but for now, these are just 8 types of investments that you should at least know about. What you invest in is completely up to you. However, your portfolio should at least reflect your risk tolerance. Don't worry about building your portfolio now, though. I'll talk about that in a later video. For now, I just want you to understand these 8 types of common investments, along with their associated risk tolerance that I'll talk about. Okay, so investment number 1 is a high interest savings account. Now, this is one of the safest ways to invest your money because there is no volatility. By placing your money in a high interest savings account, you're earning annual interest on your money. Now, the reason I specifically say high interest savings account is because a typical savings account offers little to no interest at all. A typical savings account usually offers around 0.1%, while a high interest savings account usually offers around 1.3%. Now, 1.3% is by no means high return, but the benefit here is security. You know that when you invest your money in a savings account, you're guaranteed at least that amount plus any interest earned on that money each year. Here's a quick example. If you invest $100 in a high-interest savings account with an annual return of 1.3%, you'll earn $1.30 on your investment in the first year. The second type of investment is a money market account. Now, this is also one of the safest ways to invest your money because there is no volatility. I'm not going to go into too much detail because a money market account is very similar to a high-interest savings account. Although you have access to your funds with a money market account, you typically have less access than with a savings account. With a money market account, the interest rates vary. However, this type of investment usually returns somewhere between 1% and 2%. If you choose a money market account, make sure that there's no monthly fees.
What you're going to notice as we go through this particular presentation is that as we move forward with what to invest in, it's going to be becoming more and more risky. But the return on your money is going to be higher. He talked about two safe types. First, he talked about the bank. You can go to your bank and get a high-end savings, but the interest rate is really low, less than a percent. And then he talked about the second one, which gives you a little bit better, but not the perfect type of return you want on your money.
The third type of investment is a certificate of deposit, which is more commonly referred to as a CD. This is also one of the safest ways to invest your money because there is no volatility. A CD is a promissory note from a bank that pays a fixed interest over a specified amount of time. The CD is very similar to a savings account, however, it's a very illiquid investment, meaning that it's not easily converted to cash. With a CD, investors typically set a maturity date, usually between 1 month and 5 years, which means that the investor will have to pay a penalty fee if they withdraw the money early. With a CD, the interest rates vary from bank to bank. However, this type of investment is usually compounded annually and returns somewhere between 0.5% to 2.5%. The advantage of the CD is that due to its early withdrawal fee, they force you to let your money compound for a specified amount of time. Here's a quick example. Say you had $1,000 in your savings account. Number one, you wanted a higher return. Number two, you didn't want to be tempted to spend the money. You open a 3-year CD, which means that you can't withdraw the money for at least 3 years. With an annual return of 2%, this means that after year one, you'll make $20 on your investment, which will give you a total of $1,020. After 2 years, you'll have $1,040.40. After 3 years, you'll have $1,061.20. The advantage to a CD is compound interest and the fact that it forces you to pay more. The fourth type of investment is a bond. Although bonds are still one of the safest investments you can make, they're still a little bit riskier than the previous three. A bond, in essence, is an IOU note issued by the government, local, state, or federal, or a corporation. When either company or the government is looking to fund a new project, they may issue bonds to raise money. Now, there are a few components of bonds. The bond's face value is the amount of money that was borrowed. The coupon rate is the rate of interest on the face value. And the maturity date is when the bond's face value will be paid back to the lender. Here's an example. Say company XYZ was looking to build a new warehouse, but they didn't have enough money to fund the project. Instead of going to the bank for a loan, they decided to issue a few $1,000 bonds.
Just so you know, I did move the whole room so the feedback I'm getting for sound would be eliminated. I will be turning back on I will unmute it once we finish this segment.
Coupon rate of 5% and a maturity date of 5 years. You decide to purchase one bond. That means that you'll receive 5% fixed interest for the next 5 years on your bond, which is $250, and you'll get your $1,000 back after year 5. Now, you can redeem a bond before the maturity date. However, if you do, there is a chance you may not receive your entire face value back. Bonds can also vary in risk, so the higher the coupon rate is, the riskier the bond. The fifth type of investment is a mutual fund. A mutual fund is basically a collection of stocks. Mutual funds vary in risk depending on the type of fund, but for the most part, mutual funds are safer than just stocks. Mutual funds are also a great option for investors with little cash to invest. Some funds have investment minimums, but others have no minimums. Mutual funds are also safer because they're pre-diversified collections of investments. There are many different types of mutual funds, such as technology funds, bond funds, real estate funds, energy funds, foreign funds, emerging market funds, and so on. Mutual funds are operated by a fund manager that chooses and maintains the portfolio. Actively managed funds are consistently monitored and changed by the manager, while passive funds typically aren't monitored too much. When investing in mutual funds, you should always be aware of the fees. Some mutual funds require fees while others don't. If possible, try to avoid fees at all costs. Let's take a look at a quick example. Say you have $261 to invest, but you isn't enough money to create your own diversified portfolio. Instead of buying individual stocks, you decide to purchase a $200 technology fund with a 12% 5-year return. This fund consists of many different tech companies, but the largest holdings are Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and a few others. This fund is much safer because it's already diversified, which means that your eggs aren't all in one basket. If you're holding tanks, you have the other investments to hold up your portfolio. The sixth type of investment is an exchange-traded fund, also known as ETFs. ETFs are similar to mutual funds, however, they are a bit riskier and are traded on exchange like a stock. Mutual funds are only bought and sold at the end of the day at their net asset value, the NAV, whereas ETFs can be bought and sold at any point throughout the day. One advantage of an ETF over a mutual fund is that they're more tax advantageous. ETFs are more hands-on than mutual funds, so think of an ETF as a mutual fund that is traded like a stock. ETFs are unique because they offer diversification like mutual funds with the flexibility of stocks. The seventh type of investment is a stock, which is riskier than an ETF because there is no diversification and it's a pretty hands-on investment. A stock is a share of ownership in a company. Stocks can be pretty complex, so here is a very simple example. Say a company wants to raise $100,000, but they don't want to borrow from the bank. They can choose to raise the money through stocks. When a shareholder purchases a stock, they're entitled to a portion of the company's earnings. There are two main types of stock. Number one, the dividend stock, which is typically older and pays a portion of profits. Number two is a growth stock that typically reinvests profits back into the company. A share of stock.
So let's talk about the dividend in terms of a corporation. I always use this example when I'm talking to young people. So let's say, for example, you have $150 and you decide to buy a pair of tennis shoes for $150. And you buy these tennis shoes, in about a month, they all scrape up, they all they all scarred up, they look old looking because you wore that particular pair of tennis shoes a lot. Well, that means the value goes down immediately. Now, if you took that same 150 and you invested in a stock, then the dividends that you get back every month or every quarter, you could buy a new pair of tennis shoes like 4 or 5 times a year with that one investment of 150 in the stock or some type of investment. Instead of buying those pair of tennis shoes, you wear it, and then that's $150 in a month, 2 months. It looks all dirty, all scuffled up. So your investment is wiser if you invest in something that makes your money work for you instead of you working for your money. And when you buy something, you're actually working for your money because there's no return. So if you want that money to be a return, you want to invest to make sure you get money on that return.
All right.
Depends upon the company's performance and future earnings. With that said, stocks require a lot of research and are highly involved investments. I'm going to create a more detailed series on stocks in the future, so as of right now, just know this. A stock is an ownership in a company and depends on the future performance of the company. Due to their complexity, stocks may not be the best option for new investors. The eighth type of investment is real estate. Now, this type of investment requires a lot of capital, but it's a very worthwhile investment. There are 2 main ways you can invest in real estate. Number 1, flipping properties, and number 2, renting properties. For this example, I'm going to talk about renting properties.
Now, do you know what he means by flipping property?
No, you're going to have to explain it to me because I told you it's hard to hear.
Okay, well, flipping property is like, for example, let's say you and a group of people buy a piece of real estate. and y'all buy that real estate for 100,000, and you sell it for 150. That's what we mean by flipping it. You buy it for one price, you sell it, you get your profits, and you move away from it. That's what we call flipping. Another type, and he's going to talk about this real soon, is buying a piece of property and renting it out. By far, the best type of real estate deal is when you buy a piece of property and you rent it out. Why is that? Why do you think that's better than buying a house and flipping it? Why do you think buying a piece of property and renting a house out is better?
Because you always gonna get a return.
Exactly. You're gonna get a check every month from that tenant. Okay? So in essence, that tenant that's living in that house, guess what? They paying your mortgage.
Yeah.
Because every time they pay you, you put it into your mortgage. So eventually you own that house and you're still getting income from that rental unit. So yeah, you're right. Exactly.
That will return more passive income as long as you own the property. Here's how investing in real estate works. Say you purchase an investment property for $100,000. Typically, you have to put down 25%, which is $25,000. Now, say you rented the house on a per year basis for $1,000 a month, and you have the tenants pay for utilities. That means that after expenses, you're passively making around $250 per month, and the tenants are paying your mortgage for you. That means that after your mortgage is paid off, you'll own a $100,000 house. Now, real estate is quite complex, so that was a very simple explanation. I just want to open your eyes to real estate as a potential investment. Let me put it this way. Real estate investing provides two benefits. Number one, you earn passive income every month, and number two, your tenants pay off your house for you. Now, there are a lot more factors that go into finding successful rental properties, so always make sure you're doing the proper research beforehand. I'll have a more detailed video on real estate investing later down the road. So just to recap, the 8 investments mentioned in this video are some common investments along with their associated risk. If you're a beginning investor, I encourage you to look into each of these investments further to see where you may be comfortable investing your money. In the next video, I'm going to...
Okay, good. What's most important out of this particular presentation is the different terms that he talked about. Now, I plan, in addition to sending you this presentation, I'm also going to send you a list of vocabulary words related to the investment world. So they're going to have these terms that he talked about, and
okay.
the terms that the terms we're going to learn when we go through a couple more presentations. What's important? What's important here is to understand that there is the way to make money on your money. Sometimes in the poor community, people say, well, there's no way I can make money. Well, you can if y'all collectively get together. So let's say you got a group of 15 people, all you low-income individuals, right? But at least each of you have about $3,000 that y'all have in your bank account, okay, because of tax returns or whatever. Now, if all of you, and that's 10 of you, take that $30,000, invest in a piece of property, y'all can buy that, flip that, and take your money and walk away. Or all of you can buy that piece of property, rent it out, and all of y'all got a check coming in terms of from that rental unit. So the one thing I want to emphasize is simply because you might say a person's income is limited. It doesn't mean if you don't collectively get together that you can't reap the benefit. So let's go now to talk about what stocks are, and then we're going to talk about bonds, and then we're going to more or less, after we talk about stocks and bonds, that will end the presentation for the day. Let's go back. Here. Now let's talk about stocks.
seem like a crazy prospect for a generation of young adults that have 2 cents in their pocket and a $100,000 student loan for a degree that they don't use. But when it's done right, you can take that 2 cents, turn it into 3 cents, and, well, that's more than you had yesterday. And isn't that the goal? In all seriousness, the stock market is often perceived as a big, scary abyss of money that eats unsuspecting investors alive and is the path to a magnitude of wealth for those that understand it. While those perceptions can be true, understanding the stock market and succeeding in making money with it is far easier than you might expect. In order to understand the stock market, first, we need to understand just what a stock is. Stock, otherwise known as a share, is a financial token or instrument that signifies ownership of a company in some proportion. Basically, if Amazon had 1,000 shares and you bought 1 share, you would own 1/1000th of Amazon. In reality, Amazon and companies alike have millions of shares, but that sums up the point. When you own a stock, that means that you own a portion of that company, and as the value of that company increases, so does your stock price. There are also common and preferred stocks, which refer to the voting rights of a shareholder. Common shares have voting rights, and preferred shares don't. When you have voting rights, you can vote on things like board elections, mergers, and other financial decisions. Preferred shares, however, are called that because they get preference when a company pays a dividend, which is basically a split of the profit of a company with the shareholder, and they also get preference in other financial situations. Stocks can get much more complicated than that, but these simple understandings will serve enough to the basic investor. The next thing you might be wondering is why exactly companies will sell stocks. And that answer is simple: to get money. Stocks allow a company to raise massive amounts of operating capital with essentially no extra effort or product. The modern stock market often bases the value of a company off its potential earnings down the line. This means that relatively small companies can earn millions or even billions if investors think that they can succeed in the future. So then, if a company wants to sell their shares, they need a place to do it. Enter the stock market. Companies list shares by selling them through an initial public offering, or IPO, on an exchange. This essentially changes the status of a company from a privately held business to a publicly traded one. IPOs can let company founders cash out their stake or just let the company raise money. Once a company's stocks are listed on an exchange, the public can trade them. Usually prices will fluctuate based off of public opinion, but the more concrete trends and fluctuations are usually dependent upon a company's earnings and operations. These can be measured by PE ratios, or price-to-earnings ratios, as well as a variety of other metrics. This is usually where casual investors get scared and their eyes start to glaze over. But fear not, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Next, we need to understand how and why a share price fluctuates. The stock market is composed of millions of investors and individual traders who all feel different ways about a company. They all make independent choices, and the net of those choices result in the positive or negative movement of a stock. If more people buy, then the price has to climb. If everyone wants out of the company, then the price falls due to lack in purchasing demand. An example might be this. Say you post something on Craigslist for $100. After posting, you get 400 emails saying they'll come to purchase your item all cash right now. Most people at this point might start thinking that they priced their item too low and thus raise the price until, in theory, it reaches the most that the one single last buyer will pay for it. Conversely, if you receive no offers, you'll likely keep dropping the price until someone bites. This is similar to how the stock market moves, except that the price rise and drop isn't done consciously, rather by millions of transactions every second. Supply and demand, which brings us to that topic. For every stock purchase or sale, there has to be a buyer and a seller. If there are more buyers, then the price will go up. If there are more sellers, the price will go down. Traders often might talk about the bid-ask spread, which basically means the difference between the bid, or what someone is willing to pay to buy a share, and the ask, or what someone is willing to sell a share for. Supply and demand is fairly simple to understand at the end of the day. If more people want something, that thing, in this case a stock, will be more expensive. At the start of stock markets, matching buyers to sellers was done manually on a trading floor. Now it's mostly done automatically by trading systems. This allows the market to move much faster and creates the breakneck pace that any casual onlooker notices when watching the stock market. Now, you might be wondering, well, I don't have time to understand this, and why should I even invest anyway when I can earn 2 to 3% just keeping it in the bank on the high side? Well, the answer is pretty simple. If you do it right, you can make a lot of money. Using a common example that you might have heard, if you bought $1,000 of Amazon stock back in 1997, you'd have roughly $1.5 billion today.
That's a lot of moolah.
That's a long investment timeline, but I think most people would agree that the purchase would be worth it. Other companies often provide return rates like 30 to 70% each year, which is still going to build you a lot of wealth compared to that 2 to 3% each year kept in a bank account. In essence, as long as you're able to make more.
So you see how when you invest your money in a bank, how your return is less? But if you invested in stocks, notice you get a 30, 40 cent, 40, 50% return on your money. That's why investing your money brings you back a higher return on your money.
More than 3% in the stock market, you're doing better with your money than just keeping it in the bank. Now,
and guess what? The bank's not going to tell you this. The bank's going to tell you, come on, bring your money in here. Keep it. We're safe. We're going to make sure you get your money back. But what they don't tell you is that, guess what? When you give us your money to invest, let's say in the money market, we're going to take that money and we're going to invest it in something else. And with your money, we're going to get a 30 and 40% return on that money. So why shouldn't you, instead of going to the bank, go directly to the stock market so you can get a higher return on your money? It's called knocking out the middleman. And a lot of people think when they ain't got CDs and they got these other money market, they think they're getting a high return. But in fact, they're getting the 1 to 2 to 5 to 6%. Compared to the possible 30, 40, 50% that you can get return on your money if you invest in stock. And it's not that hard. Part of this class is going to talk, well, how do we pick those stocks? How do we know what to pick in order to know that we're getting a high return on our money?
We understand the stock market to be a real-time marketplace where you can purchase a part of companies you think will succeed. The next step is to figure out how. The first thing you'll need is a trading account. You can start one with common providers like E-Trade or other major banking institutions, but you can also use free trading services like Robinhood. Common trading services will charge fees for every trade you make, but new tech companies like Robinhood have made everything completely free. That means you can invest all of your money in a company and not worry about paying fees to the brokerage.
They're not going to tell you this. There's software out there that you can use in order to invest your money, and it's called Robinhood, which means that if you don't want to take the time to pick your stock, you can go to this software, and the software will tell you, hey, this is what's on the market today, and you can decide what you want to invest your money in. And this is a good buy because that's all they do is trade and invest. So you're going to get a higher return on your money, especially if you're that type to say, Mike, I don't really want to learn all this. I just want to go someplace to invest my money, okay? This would be a good software that you can get. On the other hand, if you learn how to invest your money, when you go to Robinhood, you can decide whether or not Robinhood is making a good decision on the stock. That's why it's best to know the stock market and then go to these softwares so you can make a decision on what is the best investment instead of leaving it up to the company. Let's continue.
We have a link below to start a Robinhood account where you can get a free stock to download that if you'd like. Once you have an account in any trading service, you have to decide what companies or multiple companies' stocks to purchase. which is arguably the hard part. You also have to have a certain amount of money. Stocks range from a few cents to many thousands of dollars. The key thing about...
Notice, and this is what people don't know, you can get stocks for pennies. And the reason why you can get stocks for pennies is if I'm a new company and I'm just starting up, and you know, stock is the way to bring money into a company because you're beginning to sell shares of your company to investors. That means that because I'm just getting started, I'm new. So you're not gonna put a lot of money in me. And I'll give you an example. Amazon. The stock in Amazon 15 years ago was worth $1,000. You know what that stock is worth now? $1.8 million.
Wow.
1.8. And that's right. That's the thing, man. And that's what this class is going to teach you. Don't always go for the high end. Go to companies that's just getting started and do your research. For example, we might look at a company that's in India. And this company in India is inventing a new way of, let's say, for example, they're inventing a new way that you can use your cell phone. And that new way of using your cell phone is to hit a button, and the button will be able to tell the cell phone what to do. And you can do everything with your cell phone now by voice. You can go to that cell phone, you can say, bring up this document. You can go to that cell phone and you can say, call this person. But the company's just getting started, so they need money. So they're going to sell stock maybe for $5 because they need cash money. Okay? But if you wait, and as more and more people become familiar with that particular product, and more people are paying money for that product, guess what? That money that you initially invest, that's going up. So that's why you can invest for pennies and dollars and still get a good return. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in class is how do we know what companies to invest in? And we're going to talk about how to know what companies are to invest in.
Stocks is that you can't purchase part of one. It's either all or nothing. If you want to invest in Amazon, you'll need at least $1,800, at least at the time of recording, to get started. But you can buy much cheaper, well-rated companies for a few bucks. Before you make a purchase,
I noticed he say for a few bucks. The companies may not be known, but they coming up. And what I do, I look at what the product the company's coming up with. And then I say, is it a product that will catch on? Will people buy this product? Is it something new that people will buy? And then I'm going to say, well, look, I'm going to jump into this stock because I can invest maybe $5 in this. And I know if I hold that $5 for like a year or two, that $5 is going to turn into $100. If I hold on to it, that $100 is going to turn to $1,000. And before you know, that stock that I bought for $5, now I'm getting $5,000 on that stock. Okay, so let's move from here and go to the final presentation. And this presentation is going to be on bonds. We learned about stocks. Let's talk about bonds now. Let's go here. Now, this presentation is going to be about 4 minutes.
However, to many investors, they remain a mystery. So let's explore what a bond is and how it might benefit your investment portfolio. A bond is simply a loan given to a company or government by an investor. By issuing a bond, a company or government borrows money from investors, who in return are paid interest on the money they've loaned. Companies and governments issue bonds frequently to fund new projects or ongoing expenses. Some investors use bonds in hopes of preserving the money they have while also generating additional income. Bonds are often viewed as a less risky alternative to stocks and are sometimes used to diversify a portfolio. In this example, the city of Fairview wants to build a new baseball stadium, so it decides to issue bonds to raise money. Each bond is a loan for $1,000. which Fairview promises to pay back in 10 years. To make this loan more attractive to investors, Fairview agrees to pay an annual interest rate of 5%, which in the bond world is also known as a coupon rate. An investor buys the bond at face value for $1,000. Now, let's fast forward. Each year, the city of Fairview pays the investor $50. These regular interest rates continue for the life of the bond, which is 10 years. Once the bond reaches maturity, the investor redeems his bond, and Fairview returns his $1,000 principal investment. This bond was a good deal for both the city and our investor. Fairview got the money it needed to build the investor received regular interest payments.
Now keep in mind the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, the federal government, all of those entities sell bonds. Because when the city, for example, wants to build a parking lot, what they do is to create a bond. And they tell people, hey, we want to build a parking lot. We have these, we're selling bonds for you to invest. And we're going to return X number of dollars on your bond, like for $30,000. And you put that investment into those bonds for 30 years, I mean. That means if you're getting a return on your investment of $200, that means for 30 years, every month, you're going to get that check for $200 up until that 30 years. After 30 years, then you get that initial whatever money you invest in. But the bottom line is that bonds, like stocks, offer you an opportunity to constantly get money into your pocket. It's like you're making that dollar work for you, and you're not working for the dollar. You're moving from a consumer to an investor.
And the return of the original investment. Because the bond offers regularly scheduled payments and the return of invested principal, bonds are often viewed as a more predictable and stable form of investing. Compare regular payments of a bond to the experience of owning a stock. With stocks, profits and losses are driven by market forces and are generally less predictable. Of course, like any investment, bonds are not without risk. One risk that bond investors face is the possibility that the issuer defaults on paying back the principal. This is what is known as default risk. Typically, bonds with higher default risk also come with higher coupon rates. The amount of risk depends mostly on the financial stability of the issuer. For example, most governments are generally considered stable issuers and issue bonds with a relatively low coupon rate. Corporate bonds typically represent a greater risk of default, as companies can and do go bankrupt. That's why corporate bonds often offer a higher coupon rate. Several credit rating agencies assign rankings to different bonds. This can help bond investors gauge the financial strength of the bond issuer. These ratings agencies often use different criteria for measuring risk. So it's a good idea to compare ratings when considering a particular bond. And keep in mind, rating agencies aren't always accurate. So be sure to research a bond and its risks thoroughly before investing. Another risk to consider is interest rate risk. This is the risk that interest rates will go up, and any bonds you own will be worth less if sold before the maturity date. After all, when interest rates rise, more investors allocate their money into the new, higher interest rate bonds. If you wanted to unload low interest rate bonds to take advantage of these new rates, you'd have to sell your bond at a discount to make it a worthwhile purchase for another investor. Capital preservation and income generation are just two ways bonds might be part of a diversified portfolio. Many investors use a mix of stocks and bonds to pursue their investment goals. And because bonds move differently from stocks, they can help increase or protect portfolio returns. Keep in mind that this discussion shows you one simplified way that investors might use bonds, and only a few of the risks to consider. Like all investments, bonds are complex and have a variety of uses and risks. Before you invest in bonds, it's important that you invest in your own financial education.
So that's going to do it for today. Again, you're going to get this presentation, plus you're going to get the list of vocabulary words.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Do you have grandkids?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a lot of grandkids?
No.
But you have some, right?
Yes.
What if you taught them what you learned in the class today? They're young. What if you taught them how to invest their money now? Do you know how many millionaires can come out of that? They don't teach us this in poor communities. They don't teach you that. You know, they don't teach you. So if you got grandkids, let's say you're teaching your grandkids how to invest in stocks and bonds from what you learned in class. And you tell your grandkids, look, you never act like a consumer, always act like an investor. That means that young person, every time they got a dollar, they're thinking to themselves, how can I convert this dollar to $4, $5, and $10? Instead of saying, how can I take this dollar and go buy something, which is consumer? And at the end of the day, that's what these classes are all about. It's teaching us a different way on how to use our money to make it work for us. But while I enjoy teaching it to adults, I'm also going to do a class for kids as young as 7 and teenagers, because once everybody understands the particulars related to how to invest, then we do better. Because poor people, unfortunately, spend poorly, and that means that we stay poor. Now,